Okay, Pops, another week has come and gone. Let's give everyone their auto market update. Let's start with the used car market. We have data both from Cox Automotive and from Black Book, both sharing the same story, Dad. Month over month, used car prices are starting to fall just a little bit.
Yes, not falling a lot, but they're coming down slightly. Somewhere around 1.5 to 2% decrease in used car prices that we saw in the month of June, and I would suspect that we will continue to see that during the month of July. Um, I think demand has softened to a certain degree. Costs for dealers to maintain their used car inventories through floor planning have gone up. So I think dealers are becoming a tad more cognizant about those costs, and we might see that as a reflection in prices in an attempt to move vehicles more quickly than they had been when, well, interest rates were basically zero.
Yeah, so there's a couple factors at play here. One is softening consumer demand. However, Dad, it's worth mentioning Cox Automotive says that used car sales were actually up 5% in June from May. So we still have weakening demand overall in the auto market. I think a lot of that is predicated by new car demand being lower because, well, we'll touch on in a moment here. There is no new car inventory. The new car shortage continues to get worse for
Yes.
most automakers. Some, like BMW, for example, are actually doing okay in Stellantis. So we're seeing okay demand, but kind of softening demand. And we're seeing prices start to come down on the used car side as well. The pressure that a lot of dealerships are going to be starting to feel is the same pressure that you and I would feel if we were going to go buy a car today. It costs more to finance that purchase.
Yes.
And so as cars sit around longer and longer, you're now incentivized again as a dealer to cut your price down, to incentivize getting a retail customer to come buy it. I think, Dad, that's why in June we saw pickups in mid-sized cars losing 2% of their market value, while luxury cars lost 1.8% and vans lost 1.6%. We weren't talking about vehicles lose in value like this earlier in the year because interest rates were super low, the consumer demand was higher. And of course, the new car side has stayed the same. So there's always been pressure on used cars, not enough new cars in the market. So we are seeing some factors start to coalesce around this idea that, okay, maybe used car values are heading back towards reality. They're also coming down from a 50% increase apex. So it's going to take a little while.
That, and I think dealers understand that the quicker they sell them, the better. Dealerships always worked on a 60 to 90-day term policy for most of their used cars. And for the longest period of time, they've probably thrown that out the window because they could basically get whatever they wanted. And their inventory costs as far as financing that inventory was negligible. Well, now those costs are skyrocketing, and suddenly dealers are going back to old school thinking, which is let's turn it sooner rather than later. And in order to do that, the ways most dealers know how to sell things more quickly is by adjusting the pricing in a downward fashion. So I think today there's a greater likelihood of a consumer actually being able to negotiate the price that the dealer is asking for a pre-owned car than there was even 6 weeks ago.
Yeah, and quite frankly, we put up the video just a little while ago, a week or so now. 60 to 90 days from now, we expect there to be even more leverage as a consumer if you're in the market to buy a car. Especially continue to be, if you're interested in them, there's less fuel-efficient vehicles. Their market values are dropping more precipitously than their compact and more fuel-efficient peers. Now, Dad, on the new car side, we got the latest inventory data out from Cox Automotive, and things aren't looking pretty. Supposedly, however, Ford's inventory levels are going up considerably. A lot of what we're seeing on the new car side, Dad, is that the Asian automakers are struggling mightily to get their vehicles onto dealers' lots, and the American automakers are getting more vehicles onto dealers' lots. However, a lot of those are likely going to be vehicles that were missing chips and have been sitting around for a while. For example, GM noted in their second quarter update, they have nearly 100,000 vehicles waiting for parts to be completed. Ford has increased their inventory levels. A lot of that, again, likely due to the fact that Dirt Mountain has a few less vehicles sitting on it.
If I were a consumer today, and I was interested in a Ford or a GM product, the first thing I would check if the vehicle is on the dealer's lot is I would open the driver's side door and look at the VIN the vehicle manufacturer's plate as to when that vehicle was produced. It will have the month and year in which that vehicle was produced. If the vehicle just arrived in July and it turns out that it was produced in November of 2021, that would give me pause, because that's a vehicle that has been sitting and deteriorating, waiting for its ship to come in. And God knows what kind of hidden issues there might be with that vehicle if you were to take possession of it.
Yeah, 100%. And you know lot rot better than most. You were in the industry for so long. Things happen. And we've seen from our own community some reports of issues inside the vehicles, issues outside the vehicles. So we're seeing and hearing of, unfortunately, vehicles that have sat around on dirt mountain and comparable situations that end up with issues once they make it to dealers' lots. So be wary of that. Now, Dad, on the incentives side of things, car buying has changed forever. We know that. Industry-wide, we got the latest data, 60%, 59% reduction in new car incentives. The average new car incentive last quarter was $1,228. A year ago, that was $3,003. The biggest culprits of cutting incentives, Kia, incentives are down to $650, a 75% reduction. A year ago, it was $2,549. BMW, incentives on your new $60,000 plus BMW are $1,206, down from $4,713 a year ago, a 74% decline in incentives for BMWs. So, no new car supply means no new car incentives from the manufacturers. There are a few shining lights of opportunity there, which I'll hit on in a second, but you're not surprised by this, are you?
Oh, not at all. I mean, when you can't produce cars in the volume that you want to be able to produce them in, and you can't have enough vehicles on dealers' lots, then there's no need to incentivize a customer to come in and buy the few remaining vehicles that there are. Incentives are plentiful when inventory is plentiful. When there is no real inventory, there's no real incentives from the manufacturers. And, we're talking about consumer incentives. There's also less in the way of dealer incentives from the manufacturer to the dealer to hit certain sales goals, because they can't provide the vehicles with the dealers with the vehicles to hit those goals. So, they're saving huge sums of money on incentives both to dealers and consumers.
Now, I should mention, we have an incentive running right now. We've been selling extended warranties, vehicle service contracts, and in the state of California, mechanical breakdown insurance for a little over a year now, Dad. And for the first time ever, we are doing a $150 promotion. We make $500 when we sell them. So for this promotion that runs through the month of July, we are making $350. If you get a quote and you buy from YAA during the month of July, you get that $150 promotion. Bit of an incentive there. I guess we have good supply of service contracts. Now,
yes.
There are two automakers who are still offering somewhat decent incentives, I would say, Dad. One is going to be Stellantis. They've got $1,893 on average in incentives, down 46% from a year ago when it was $3,522, but still. And General Motors offering $1,847, down from $4,400 a year ago.
Both of them are offering incentives that are about 33% higher than the industry average. Maybe they have more inventory than others. Maybe they're just afraid that they'll lose market share if they don't incentivize their customers, because their customers over the years have grown used to large incentives for them to come and buy their products. And I guess they just can't wean themselves off of the larger incentives.
Now, one other incentive that we haven't talked about is financing incentives. Data from Cox Automotive shows that we actually have more 0% financing right now than we did back in May. Nowhere near the spike we saw at the beginning of the COVID pandemic back in March of 2020. However, 9.8% of financing options are 0% financing options for new cars. So that is a bright spot here, as you still have some 0% financing options, which are great incentives. If you can get 0% financing, take advantage of that all day long.
Yeah, that's a great incentive for the customer. And there's a cost to the manufacturer for offering that, because it's usually offered through their captive lender, and they have to make up that lost interest rate to the captive lender. They're paying them to offer the 0%. So there's a cost.
All right, Pops, we will be back next week when we have even more data on the new and used car market. Until then, some bright spots, some things happening, maybe some softening. I don't want to proclaim a bubble is bursting, but maybe we're getting a little bit closer.
Oh, Bubble Boy, stop it.